All right, now back in lesson 2, we talked about guide tone / root structures, and it was labeled left to right. What we're going to do is go back to some of these diagrams. We dealt with diagrams A through F for the big picture, and out of that, you saw how initially we just dealt with the diagrams using these 3 structures for 6-string root, and these 3 structures for 5th-string root structures. So we're going to take a moment here, excuse me, and go through and let you see the big picture about how you lay things out. Now, some of this will be redundant because we've covered it in a way, but I just want you to see where it comes from. If you look at diagram 1, back on your guide tones, you saw how it was root, 7th, and 3rd, right? So here we had in F, for example. We're going to move it up the neck for our purposes here. So let's go up to A. And then, by using some of these other ones, diagram A, for example, you saw that you had all of this information available. All 4 guide tones over here with the root down there. So out of this big structure, if you look at diagram 10, for example, you can see how I put the 7 in parentheses. Now, the purpose of this was to help you see via octaves. If you play your initial structure, 1, 7, 3, you just raise the 7th an octave, and that gives you what diagram 10 is. Likewise, had it been a dominant 7th chord, like diagram 2, well, diagram 11, you're just simply taking the flat 7 and raising it up an octave. So there are a number of diagrams in here that just cover the octave motion or movement from your initial structures where you were thinking left to right. But right to left, this is when it gets pretty interesting. You might say, why do I need to see it this way? Well, I'll explain something. This is actually a preview of where we're headed. And I've shown you a couple little tidbits where I'm improvising and I'm playing. For example, if I'm playing A major 7, I have the root, the 7th, the 3rd there. I have used up those strings. So the only 2 strings that I can start playing around with and retain these voices, these scale degrees, would be the 2nd and the 1st strings. Now this is where you need to know your scales and know the area. So the 5 is right here. Well, I have a flat 5 or a sharp 4. I have a 4, and that's an unusual voice, and you wouldn't use that. But I also have a sharp 5. Probably not going to use that, but I have a 6. I have a flat 7. I'm not going to use that with the major 7. Then I have a flat or natural 7 up there. So the 2 usable tones that I have. Let's put it into our move for the key of F down here. You have an F major 7. So the 5's here and the 6 is here, right? Then if I move up from my G7, won't those still be in the same place? Here's the G7, so I still have a 5 and a 6. So you're going to learn how to see on the 1st and the 2nd strings all these other scale degrees in reference physically and shape-wise to a root on the 6th string. But you're thinking left to right because you're not able to move the other way for a couple of reasons. Well, let's go back to A, for example. Now, let's say I play this A major 7. I can add the 5, I can add the 6, I can add a 7. I can go over to the 1st string and add a root. I can add a 9 up on top. I can start adding all kind of things. And then if I want to, I can maybe move down and go and drop the 3 down to the 2. But in doing so, I lose the 3. Well, here's where these other diagrams are going to help you. Let's take a look at diagram 13, for example. In diagram 13, you can see I have that original major 7 chord. Now, the reason we're not doing it in F is it's off the neck, and I don't want to do it up here, not yet. So we'll go to A, for example. This 3 would also be located, that C sharp would be over here. So I could play that same structure, but I would move the 3rd over to the 2nd string. Hence my term, I'm thinking right to left. Here's what it offers me. I can then put that 2 in there and get a beautiful major 9 chord. I couldn't do that over here. I would lose the 3. So that's why you have all these other diagrams which show layouts in that way. So if we go to the guide tone layouts, you will see in diagrams G through L, you will see layouts that are right to left. And then all of your other diagrams that are numbered, where they go up to, 20 or 30. Yeah, up through diagram 30, you'll see various voicings that are coming out of these master maps, so to speak. Well, I encourage you to explore all of these different fingers. I'm not going to take time yet because I really want to get into adding the 5s, the 6s, and the 2s, because that's when it gets really fun. But you're going to have to use this information. So if you get lost in the future lessons, go back and study these. Let's start with diagram G, for example. Now, in diagram G, let's say I was in A. Here I have 1, 7, 3. I also have a 7, a 3, and a 7 over here. So that allows me to get all my guide tones. And what this does is you're actually connecting from your original groups of 6th and 5th string root. Let me demonstrate it to you this way. Let's say I'm playing a C major 7, because it'll be a little more apparent. The original format, if you look at diagram A, you have all those guide tones thinking left to right from this C bass note on the 6th string. And then, if you go to diagram D, you have 5th string root, so you have the same information root off the 5th string, correct? What diagram G does is it connects those two together. I have the root, the 7th, and the 3rd from diagram A, but then I'm also capturing the 3 and the 7 on the 2nd and 1st strings from diagram D. So you're kind of bridging the gap between the two areas that you've been dealing with. The better that you see these, and it doesn't happen overnight, but the better that you see these guide tones, the more easily you'll be able to always lock up with the chord and then improvise by putting these moving lines in, which is where we're headed. I keep saying that. All right, let's explore diagram H, for example. Again, we'll use the key of C, for example. Here we have a C7. So originally you had all of your guide tones. That comes right out of diagram B, right? Then if I look at diagram E, I have the C7 5th string root. These two guide tones are also available. And what that does is it allows me to do all kind of hip things. See, I'm able to connect by thinking right to left. And this is a way of seeing information on the neck that you may not be as comfortable with as thinking left to right. Most people move left to right. So I encourage you to study all these different forms and layouts, and that's going to help you. All right? So that's the second part of your guide tone root structures. And now we're going to put it to work in our next lesson.